is really unique timing-wise. Just as Taylor Stephenson sits down in the studio, hey Taylor.
Hey Connor.
We get a live press conference from the Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, June 1st, the first day of hurricane season. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen into that press conference, not for too long, and then we'll come out and we'll have Taylor kind of build off of that as we begin our coverage of hurricane season. Then we'll get into that local forecast. For now, live out to Miami.
The federal down to the local level, as we emphasize the need for preparedness. So I think back, every hurricane season, as you run up to June 1st, there's so much focus on, well, what's the season going to be like, and the seasonal forecast and that messaging. But now that we're here, the focus is on the fact that there are going to be storms. NOAA's forecast is for 8 to 14 named storms in the Atlantic, several hurricanes, 1 to 3 major hurricanes. We're expecting very busy years in the eastern and central Pacific basins. So the main message is now prepare. This is the time to get ready. And it does not take a major hurricane making landfall directly in your community for there to be hazardous conditions there. And this year more than ever, really that message of it only takes one storm affecting your community to make it a bad season for you and your family. So now is the time to find out, do you live in a storm surge evacuation zone? Know how you're going to evacuate, where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, how you're going to prepare you and your family to survive potentially several days on your own within your community to keep you and your family safe. Multiple days, again, of food, water, medicine, anything you're going to need to keep you and your family safe. And find your trusted sources of information. Now more than ever, it's important to find those authoritative sources of information about the storm itself and the weather and the hazards it brings, as well as what you need to do to keep you and your family safe. So that starts here at the Hurricane Center with hurricanes.gov, your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov, your local emergency managers like Pete and Clay. Those local emergency officials are going to tell you what you need to do to keep you and your family safe. Find those sources of information now. Your local broadcast meteorologists, your local media, they're going to be the ones that can translate that information about the hazards, the storm surge, the winds, the flooding rainfall, the tornadoes, the surf and rip currents, and translate that information down into what you need to keep you and your family safe. So again, welcome here. I'm going to pass it on over to Acting FEMA Administrator Bob Fenton for a few words, and welcome, Bob. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here, Dr. Brennan, and glad to be back at the Hurricane Center. And I want to thank our partners from NOAA and all our other partners across the emergency management community. As we kick off hurricane season here, the one thing I want to get across is that FEMA is ready. FEMA is ready to support our state, tribal nations, territories, and local emergency managers that lead disaster response. Under President Trump and Secretary Mullen's leadership, FEMA is working to be not only leaner, faster, but also laser focus on our core mission, which is helping people before, during, and after disasters. FEMA is ready. We have over 20,000 personnel ready for this hurricane season. We have 18 of our national and regional incident management teams that are able to deploy to disasters. We have 28 of our urban search and rescue teams that are partnerships with local governments across the country ready to support. We have our disaster and emergency communication teams, 6 of those ready to respond this year. So we stand ready. But readiness is far more than what we have ready to go at the federal level. It's really all the preparedness that starts year-round. And over the last year and a half, since January 2025, we've trained over 1 million state, local, tribal, territorial emergency managers, local leaders, and others through courses that we provide through FEMA. In addition to that, our FEMA logistics teams are out right now working with states and local governments to understand their capabilities, but more importantly, understand where the gaps are so we ensure that we're ready to support those. And in addition to what we're doing to get ready, we have a lot of ongoing disaster recovery happening right now across the United States from the last year of hurricanes. Over the last year, we provided over $830 million of assistance to individuals from the last years of events. And we provide over $11.4 billion and over 13,000 grants to cover restoration of damaged infrastructure. It's also about partnerships. And the partnerships you see here today are critical to the success of emergency management. Those partnerships with states, tribal nations, local governments that are in the lead for disasters. FEMA stands ready to support those entities with federal resources and to coordinate the federal government's support to states and local emergency managers. Our partnership here today with NOAA and emergency managers helps ensure the public gets accurate information when needed to make the best decisions in order to protect the public. The 2026 hurricane season overlaps with a number of other major events to include FIFA World Cup and Americans 250 celebration. We are making sure that we not only prepare for hurricane season but cover those events, so we established a task force to focus on those events this year that will not draw away from the resources we have ready to respond to hurricane season. In addition to that, we provide almost $900 million to states and local governments to prepare for those special events this year. Bottom line, states and communities lead. FEMA and our federal partners are ready to support. One of the key members, and Dr. Brennan talked about it, is Americans all over the country. And we need to make sure that even with all the planning and coordination we're doing, that every American has a critical role to play in disasters. The time to prepare is now, and that time has to happen before a storm is on the way. So make sure that you have a plan, make sure that you build a kit, stay informed, sign up for alerts, pay attention to trusted sources, whether it be the National Hurricane Center or your local officials. And the other key thing is make sure that you have insurance. Whether that be insurance or flood insurance is critical. It takes about 30 days for flood insurance to become active policy. In disasters, it's shown us that insurance pays far more than what we have paid for disasters. If you look back at studies over the last 5 years, insurance pays almost about $80,000 on your losses to your home, whereas FEMA pays on average about $4,500. So to recover whole, insurance is critical to that. In closing, I just want to underline a couple things, that FEMA will continue to work closely with our partners at NOAA, with governors, travel leaders, local officials, and emergency managers across the nation. President Trump has nominated Cam Hamilton for the FEMA administrator, and we have been connected at the hip as he goes through the Senate confirmation process. He's ready to, and once he goes through that, he'll be ready to assume, if confirmed, the role of the FEMA administrator. And so we work very closely together to make sure that that happens seamlessly as we go into this hurricane season. Just want to say he's a great American and will be a great partner to our communities and our states and local governments, and a great leader in emergency management. We're committed in FEMA to support communities before, during, and after disasters, strengthen our partnerships, and help individuals, families get better prepared. I appreciate your continued coordination of these partnerships. And now I'd like to invite Miami-Dade Emergency Manager Pete Gomez to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Dr. Brennan. As you see here, this is what we talk about collaboration. We're here with some of our partners that help respond to all these disasters. And Bob mentioned it. It's about preparing for the community. Make sure that you prepare. I always like to say this story. I'm one of the members of one of the 28 national urban search and rescue teams, and I've responded to a bunch of disasters throughout this country. And when we've gone to many of these hurricane-stricken areas like Katrina, Mississippi, the west coast of Florida, a lot of times there's destruction like you wouldn't believe. And I asked the survivors, why didn't you evacuate? And it was always the same story. It was because we lived through hurricane such and such, and we thought this one wasn't going to be as bad. And to Dr. Brennan's point is, all it takes is one. It doesn't matter if you got 3 named storms or you got 8 to 16 storms that are going to be coming this way. All it takes is one. The last time Miami-Dade got hit with a real bad weather event wasn't even a hurricane. It was 2017 Irma, and as it came through Miami-Dade County, it was not a Category 1 hurricane. I know that because Rob Moyeda told me that from the National Weather Service. And yet it caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damaged buildings and debris in response to this thing. So what I like to say to the communities, please be prepared. You heard it from Bob Fenton, right? Create a kit, have a plan, Know your evacuation zones. Know whether you're in a storm surge zone or what storm surge zone you're in, and know whether you got to leave. The wind isn't the most dangerous aspect of the risk of hurricanes and storms. It's the water, right? We hide from the wind and we run from the water. So if you live on the East Coast, that means you're going to get some storm surge and some of these hurricanes. Just know where you're going to go. That should be part of your plan. Doesn't mean you got to leave the state of Florida. It just means you got to get out from that storm surge zone and go to an area that's going to be safe. Doral's a great place to come to Hialeah. Some of these places that are higher away from the coast, and just make sure you get into a safe building. Know who you're going to go to. Notify your family members, say you're coming. As part of your plan, if you've got medical conditions and you take medications, make sure you have your medications. Make sure you have a new prescription, because if power goes out, you might not be able to get an electrical prescription from the doctor's office, right? If you got animals, right, know what you're going to do with the animals. We have pet-friendly shelters. We can bring you to a pet-friendly shelter. If you got medical conditions, if you're an elderly patient and you need us to come get you, we encourage you to sign up for the Emergency Evacuation Assistance Program that Miami-Dade handles. We will actually come and get you and take you to an evacuation shelter, right? And if you are going to be going to an evacuation shelter, know what you got to bring, right? And as you prepare, you're preparing your kit, know what you got to bring in that kit. Have enough food, right, for 3 to 7 days. Have enough water, 1 gallon of water per person per day. So you got to know all these things. If you're going to evacuate, make sure your gas is topped off on your vehicles. If you got a boat, the admiral's going to close down those bridges at some point. Know what you're going to do with your boat. That should be part of your plan, right? So now's the time to make sure you got all those things squared away. If you got a lot of things around your house, secure them, because they become projectiles in storms. Now's the time to make sure you get all those things. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to introduce my partner in crime from Broward County, Clay Pacheco.
And we're going to introduce our partner in crime, Taylor Stephenson, who joins us now. Taylor, we just heard about all those preps that are being taken. FEMA officials, county officials. It's the first day of hurricane season. June 1st is always that day. We can kind of build on this however you like. I mean, where do you want to take the fact that this is the first day of hurricane season? What's most important for people to know today?
Because it's the first day of hurricane season, I want people to know that this is a time to start preparing, right? Because we don't really expect any tropical activity over the next 7 days, which is the good news. And the Hurricane Center just said, we're working on our preps. We're working on, making sure that everyone knows their safety plans in terms of when things may strike. So I am watching for just over the next few weeks any type of tropical development. And as I mentioned, I am not expecting any tropical development here in the Atlantic Basin for the next 7 days. Now, here's a look at what the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is NOAA, has forecast for this 2026 hurricane season. Now, the average for any hurricane season is around 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. Now, the forecast from the NOAA hurricane experts is 8 to 14 named storms, 3 to 6 hurricanes, and 1 to 3 major hurricanes. So they're expecting a below normal to possibly near average season. So right now, just with that preliminary information, this is good news, right? We're expecting a below normal to near normal hurricane season. And we'll be watching out for development. Now, here's a look at the 2026 Atlantic storm names. We have anything from Arthur to Hannah to Omar, down through Wilfred. You'll notice that some letters are missing, and that's because it's hard to find consistent Q names, hard to find consistent Z names. So there's not all of these alphabets, and a change that happened over the course of the past few years is that we are no longer going to be using the Greek alphabet. As we've mentioned over the past couple of years, we just have an alternate list of names that are just regular names. But as you see, again, watching to see if we can see any of these. Now, one name that does ring a bell, at least here for Hampton Roads, is Isaias. That happened obviously 6 years ago, because we switch out the names the names recycle every 6 years. And Isaias actually came up the East Coast, knocked out power to Virginia. And I actually remember that specifically because my grandma at the time, she was living in Portsmouth and had called me and was like, this storm named Isaias is coming up. And I was like, yes, it's coming. And it brought down power to the area. And at that time, it wasn't even a huge hurricane. As it rolled up the East Coast, disintegrated into a tropical storm. So just know that, regardless if it's a strong tropical storm, a weak Category 1 hurricane, those effects can be the same: power outages and losses. That's why during this time of the very early hurricane season, when water temperatures aren't as warm, tropical development isn't as active, this is the time of year when you start to really prep for those things. So here's a look at tracking the tropics. Again, no tropical activity is expected over the next week or so, but we'll continue to watch out for that. The Eastern Pacific, a little bit more active, and with the El Nino, we're expecting a little bit more activity on the other side of the country. Now, in terms of tropical Atlantic activity, now as you can see, the peak of hurricane season usually comes around August, September into October, where our peak date is right around September the 10th, but we are here right at June 1st. And so we usually expect, minimal tropical activity. And if it does become a tropical system, usually these are going to be your pretty quick tropical storms, maybe low-end hurricanes. The strongest stuff usually comes during the late summer into early fall. That's when the ocean temperatures are the warmest, and that's why you started to see those activities starting to spike, just because the water temperature is hot enough to support that tropical activity. But no tropical activity is expected, again, as I said, over the next week or so. We are still watching a few isolated showers here in Hampton Roads in northeastern North Carolina, not associated with any tropical systems, and that's going to be right around the Albemarle Sound. So as I zoom in here, you can see some of that rainfall coming through just around the southern banks of the Albemarle Sound, Alligator, Gum Neck down into the Outer Banks, so Kill Devil Hills. But they're very spotty showers. But what I want you to notice too is that you see the oranges, the yellows. We're seeing some moderate to heavy downpours in those small things. But Connor and I talked before we came back to talk, listen to the press conference from NOAA and talk about hurricane season. And these showers that he experienced, he told me, it rained for like less than a minute and they move on. Very, very small showers in the area.
So quick. It was unbelievable. I was like, oh no, it's going to be rainy today.
Yeah.
And then it just stopped right away. Now I was driving, so I may have driven out of it.
That is
but
true, too.
It was so fast.
So fast, and then by the time we look up during the middle of the afternoon, all of this rainfall should be gone. But I'll have more on what to expect for the forecast for the rest of the day, and then the comfortable week before high heat and beach-like weather comes back later on into the weekend. That's all going to be on 13 News Now starting at noon.
And did Grandma call you specifically because she knows about your meteorology?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Trust me and trust and believe. My family, my friends, they all call me. It can be anything from what's happening in the current day or I'm going on a trip. What's the forecast for Miami? And I do everything.
Yes.
So.
Well, I hope they're Venmoing you because that's a little bit of extra work there.
Yeah.
So if you're in the Stephenson family and you ask Taylor for a forecast, you got to throw her a couple bucks as well.
Just a couple bucks.
Just a couple bucks. All right, Taylor, you're the best. We'll see you on 13 News Now at noon for a more full forecast. We appreciate you joining us on the first day of hurricane season.